Hello, killers, and welcome to the Killer Author Club, your favorite haunt for all things murder, mystery, and mayhem. Tonight we've got Amy Tintera in the house, author of the blockbuster Listen for the Lie. Grab your list of questions, your poison, a cocktail or mocktail, and get ready to kill the lights.
Welcome to the Killer Author Club. 3 best-selling authors talking about killing, of the fictional kind, with the best thriller and suspense authors in the business. Killer conversations, killer cocktails, and killer guests, with your hosts, Kimberly Bell, Heather Gutenkopf, and Kara Ruda. This is the Killer Author Club.
Welcome to all our new blood and OG killers alike, whether you're watching live, catching the replay, or listening to us on the Killer Podcast. We are so glad you are here. I'm Killer Kimberly Bell.
And I'm Killer Kara Ruda.
And I'm Killer Heather Gutenkopf.
And before we dive into the dark twists and turns of Listen for the Lie, a couple of quick PSAs. If you love tonight's show and want more, check out the Killer Postmortem, the podcast exclusive after show where every guest confesses something deadly. Tonight's show will be available on your favorite podcasting app starting this Friday. Links to download are at killerauthorclub.com. While you're there, make sure to sign up for our newsletter so you never miss our killer breaking news. And speaking of news,
We do. We have huge news. So congratulations to Killer Kimberly. She won the coveted Edgar Award for Best Paperback Original. So Kimberly, we're so excited for you. So much fun.
Yay.
Thank
Can you show
you.
us the hardware?
I can. I brought the Poe.
Oh my gosh, look at that. That's
gorgeous.
He's so adorable. I'm
Is he
so
heavy?
excited. He's going to live on my bookshelves with all my
Yeah.
books.
For sure.
awesome.
Is he heavy? Is he hefty? Could he be used as a killer weapon?
100%. 100%.
Okay. There.
Could whack somebody on the head with this, and yeah, for sure.
So great. Well, congratulations. We are so happy, so proud of you.
Thank you.
So much fun.
Well, it was a lot of fun. Okay, so do you want all 3 Killer Hosts' upcoming thrillers signed, sealed, and delivered with exclusive swag?
Then sign up for the KAC book box, curated with care, packed with blood-curdling goodies, and offered in partnership with the fabulous Swamp Fox bookstore in Marion, Iowa.
That's right. The subscription includes all 3 of our 2025 releases, The Expat Affair on June 3rd, Jill Is Not Happy on June 10th, and The Perfect Host in early November. All 3 books come with the Killer Author Club and book-themed swag.
Subscribe now at killerauthorclub.com or through our partner, Swamp Fox Bookstore. The links are coming up in the comments, so watch for those while we welcome tonight's guest.
Yay, welcome, Amy. So we're finished with our PSAs, Amy. Okay, Amy is the author of Listen for the Lie, an instant New York Times bestseller and Good Morning America book club pick. She has also published several novels for young adults. She worked as a talent agency assistant in Hollywood, tough job, before becoming an author. Raised in Austin, Texas, she frequently sets her novels in the Lone Star State, but she now lives in Los Angeles, where there's far less humidity, but not nearly enough Tex-Mex. Congratulations, Amy, and welcome to the Killer Author Club.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We're so happy you're here. We really are. And we all love the book, as so many people have across the globe. And we have so many questions about Listen for the Lie. But first, can you start by telling us really quickly, like an elevator pitch, about what the book is about?
Sure. Listen for the Lie is a book about Lucy, a woman who is widely believed to have murdered her best friend. But due to a head injury, she has lost her memory of the night. So she doesn't even know if she is the one who did it. And 5 years later, a true crime podcaster decides to take up the case, and she is forced to return to her hometown to help him solve it.
Yeah, it's so good. Okay, we're going to get to all the questions for Amy in a minute. But first, what are we drinking tonight?
Yes, so Killer Amy has chosen the Cosmo as her killer cocktail tonight. Amy, why this poison of choice?
So in the book, they drink Cosmos, actually. Ben, the podcaster, he goes to the bar and he decides to get the happy hour special, which is a Cosmo. And the backstory of that is actually that I started this book in 2019 and I wrote a lot of it in 2020 during the pandemic. And not long after the pandemic started, in April, actually, Chef Ina Garden made this big, she made this video with this enormous Cosmo.
I remember that.
And then, so I made it myself an enormous Cosmo and got a terrible hangover. But then I later put it in the book because I was like, that was delicious because I had not had many Cosmos before that.
That's
I
amazing.
remember that huge Cosmo. That's so funny. That's great.
And she did it with a straight face too. She's like dumping like a giant jug of vodka in there. It was hilarious.
That was the only thing to do back then in those
It
days.
was. Yeah. That was why I went out and got some curbside liquor and made myself a Cosmo.
We'll love it.
You
Well,
made it through.
cheers to an amazing book and for being here with us tonight. Congratulations.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers.
Mm. Okay, you guys. So we created the Killer Author Club so that readers like you could get up and close and personal with their favorite thriller writers. This season's lineup is stacked with killers: Peter Swanson, Anthony Horowitz, 2 men in a row, Kara and me with 2 very special and secret guest hosts, and so many more. For dates, times, past episodes, etc., surf to killerauthorclub.com. But tonight, it's all about Listen for the Lie, the New York Times bestseller, a Good Morning America book club pick, an NPR Best Book of the Year, a Washington Post Best Thriller of 2024. Stephen King called it a world-class whodunit. That's amazing if you get a quote from Stephen King. Laugh out loud, funny, thrilling, and twisty, according to Leanne Moriarty, #1 New York Times bestselling author. So, Amy, clearly you are a killer of great renown. And now we need to know your answer to the killer question: who do you kill?
So I have to go with everyone because in the book, Lucy she has intrusive thoughts and she imagines murdering pretty much everyone that she meets in like fun new ways. So I have to go with everyone.
You're right. Oh, that's perfect.
I know. And I love that dark voice in her head too. That was she was very funny sometimes.
Right. Yes.
Dark and
Encouraging her to kill everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. I have an idea. Kill. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I feel like we have to start with Beverly, who is the grandmother in this book. And I think it's probably every reader has fallen in love with her, as I did. What was the inspiration for that character and the gorgeous relationship between her and Lucy?
So she was sort of lightly inspired by my own grandmother, she did not have like a tiny house and she wasn't like drinking all day long, but she was a sort of a strong, opinionated woman who was not a like cookie baking sort of grandma. And so I sort of took that inspiration and made a sort of badass grandma that reflected the sort of woman that I would want to be when I am 80. And I think that's something that we don't see in books or TV or movies enough, like older women who are portrayed like as more than just a grandmother or a mother. And I wanted to give that to Beverly, a fun, well-rounded character who in her tiny house, making her hard iced teas, at noon.
But changing her granddaughter's life.
Yeah.
Fast, right?
Yeah, no, she deeply loves her granddaughter.
Yeah, she does, and it's so great to read. This is your first adult novel, so why did you decide to make the switch from young? Was it young adult before?
Yes. So I published like 8 young adult novels beforehand, and it was partly just getting older and darker, sort of. As I got a little older, I started craving, let's write a 29-year-old divorcee with a dark past, which is not something you can do in YA. But I think I crave sort of writing in the real world because all my teen novels are sci-fi and fantasy. And so mystery thrillers seemed like a great fit for me because it's still so dominated by women characters and women authors. So it's similar to YA in that way, but it's in the real world, and I could be very dark and have a character who is quite a bit older than my YA characters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, another great thing you did, you structured the book around a podcast, which we all love podcasts, but with a fresh twist. So shifting focus from the podcaster who's telling about this case and the accused. So how did you decide that you were going to format the book in this way? And were there any podcasts out there that kind of inspired your writing?
So the Serial podcast was the first one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We all love Serial.
Yeah. So I listened to that one and I loved it. I was obsessed with it. And then after that, it was really audiobooks that got me thinking about writing something that could be great on audio. Like I listened to, Daisy Jones and the Six, or World War Z that has an interview format. There's a YA series called Illuminate that is basically like an old school, like radio style play, almost like in your ears, like a movie in your ears is what I've heard people talk about. And so I wanted to do something that would be really great on audio. It's such a big market now as well. It's really bursting. And so I sort of brought that together. Like I had listened to Serial and thought it was so great. And I had listened to all these audiobooks. I was like, how can I combine all this into like an awesome sort of mystery thriller thing? And so that is what ended up becoming Listen for the Lie.
Yeah. Well, you definitely hit it. It was great.
Oh, thank you.
Let's talk a little bit more about Savvy. We talked about her before, the voice in Lucy's head, the dark, funny, murderous voice in her head.
Mm-hmm.
How did you come up with the idea for actually putting her in Lucy's head?
How did I'm trying to think how exactly that came about, because that was one of those things that came slowly in editing, because it took me about 2.5 years to write Listen for the Lie, which is longer than a lot of my YA books had taken. And it was partly because I had to write a couple YA books in between while I was writing it. But it's the book sort of came together in like a lot of different places. And like I said, it was during the pandemic that I wrote a lot of it. And so during the pandemic, I moved in with my sister and her wife and their 3-year-old son. And they were saying all the time to their son, I have an idea. And it was like their way of getting him to do things, basically. Because, 3-year-olds, they don't just do things because you tell them to. Like, I have an idea. We're going to do this now. And so I kept hearing it all. I think I lived with them for about 6 months. And they kept saying, I have an idea and I have an idea. And so by the time I left and went back to LA, I still had this in my head. And one day it became, I have an idea, let's kill. And that sort of became the voice in Lucy's head that there's a second half to that sentence, which I won't say since it's a little bit of a spoiler. But that sort of got me thinking about wouldn't it be fun if she was in Lucy's head, urging her to kill.
And it made her like really present in the story too, which was nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because we never meet her on the page, right? She's dead when the book opens. So it kind of gave her a real personality and brought her to life.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a question before I lose it. Okay, which is easier or more challenging to write, adult mystery thriller or YA sci-fi?
Oh man, they're both really difficult in different ways. Like the mystery is really hard to to plot out and to make it like doling out the twists at the right time and making it make sense and making it not too obvious but a little bit obvious. That's really difficult. But then the sci-fi, like the action scenes are just brutal, and the getting the science part across when you're like someone like me who doesn't really like understand science. So I would say they're both really hard. I have yet to find a book that's easy to write, unfortunately.
Yeah. I would imagine that's universal with authors. You think, especially when you've got, what did you say? You have 8 young adult novels.
Yeah.
When you sat down to write this one, you had written 8, and you think it's going to get easier, but it never gets easy. It just doesn't.
If anything, it gets harder.
I think so too, because like in the beginning, you don't know what you don't know, and you're maybe a little blissfully ignorant of how difficult it is.
Yeah.
All the things you're doing wrong, maybe. But then the more you go, the more you learn, like, oh, I have to do this and I have to remember this. And you have the added pressure of all your books that have come before, right?
Yes, that's a lot of pressure.
It's always fun.
Yeah.
Well, I love a small town setting, and you set this book in small town Texas, right? So, and the dynamics of her, Lucy returning home, did that come from past experience? Where did the small town come from in that
So
situation?
it came from definitely me growing up in Texas. I grew up in Austin. So in the city in Listen for the Lie is one that I made up, Plumpton. It does not exist, unfortunately. I feel like it would be a fun city if it did exist, but I did lightly base it on Fredericksburg, which is a sort of a small wine type city in central Texas, not too far from Austin. I guess maybe, like, I just thought of this now that you said it, is that I lived in LA and then I did move back to Texas and I started Listen for the Lie while I had gone back to Texas. And then after that, I came back to LA. But that, now that you mention it, maybe that was sort of in the back of my mind, coming back to Texas.
hmm I love a coming home story.
Yeah. Yeah, those are fun.
It's always a lot of drama.
How much research did you have to do in terms of the amnesia part of the story?
I did a good bit of research on that to make sure that it was something that could actually happen, because it is losing your memory like that right before when you get a head injury is something that can definitely happen. And so I did a bunch of research into that. And even in an earlier draft of the book, Ben interviews a doctor where the doctor kind of lays it out that, oh yes, this could happen. But it didn't really contribute enough to the story, I thought. And I also was worried that I just didn't know enough about being a doctor to actually write in a podcast interview with one. So I cut that, and I don't think we needed it. But yeah, I did. I wanted it to be somewhat realistic because there is a lot of amnesia in thrillers. It's popular.
Right.
Yeah.
The readers will they'll know if it's not quite right.
Oh, 100%. They'll figure you out.
Yeah. Sure.
So at the Edgar Award Symposium, you talked about some of the critics deeming your characters unlikable in this story, but I disagree. I mean, I adored Savvy and Grandma Beverly, of course, who I said that before. And I think a number of the key characters that maybe the critics were saying were unlikable were redeemed in the end. Do you think about likability when you're writing? And does every character in a book have to be likable? I mean, I think we hear that word a lot, but what are your thoughts on it?
So I don't think that all the characters have to be likable. But one of the things that I talked about at the Edgar Symposium is that I was surprised by people saying that the characters weren't likable. And these were like good reviews. These were 5-star reviews. People saying, I love this book, but no one was likable at all. And so I was really surprised. And I was like, I didn't really realize that, especially definitely Grandma. Like, of course, Grandma's likable. Come on. But
love Beverly.
Yeah. I think Lucy, I had not really thought about at all that she wouldn't be super likable, which is a little bit silly because she is, suspected of murder at the beginning of the book. But I thought she was like cool and funny, So I guess I looked past it. But I think the thing is that I want to make like complex, interesting characters. And I don't think that my writing, which is kind of a little sarcastic at times, I don't think it really lends itself to like nice characters. So I think that's just not the sort of characters that come out when I write. And I guess maybe I just really like sarcastic people like Lucy, who always have a joke at like an inappropriate moment.
Right. Okay, I'm looking at the comments. Cher says, I personally like to hate a character.
Yeah, sometimes that's fun.
You need somebody to root for, but you also need somebody to really not like, right? And sometimes it's funny when that is the same you can both root for and hate a character at the same time. Unlikable characters mirror real life, according to Edie. Many
Mm-hmm.
unlikable people are around. Yes, unfortunately true.
It's true. We don't go through life with just nice, wonderful people everywhere.
Yeah. Sherry doesn't think all characters need to be likable. Yeah. So, yeah, we're not the only ones.
They're all on your side in here in Killer Author Club.
Right.
Oh, and
Okay.
here's one. This is good. If you're Southern, you speak fluent sarcasm.
That's true.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's
Okay, I read somewhere you used color-coded cards to chart Lucy's journey. Can you tell us a little bit about your process?
Yeah. Like I said, it took a good 2.5 years to write the book. I did a very messy first draft first, and then the book really came together in editing later. But I found it really difficult to line up the Lucy's first person narration with the podcast, especially because I'd made the decision to have the podcast mostly happening in real time. I think maybe 2 to 3 episodes have aired when Lucy decides to go back to Plumpton, and so she catches up a little, and then the episodes are dropping as she's there. And in the second half of the book, they become sort of like mini episodes, which was my way of trying to make these episodes happen faster, because I was like, she's not going to be here for the 2 months that it usually takes for a podcast to roll out episodes. So that was a good solution for that. But I ended up having to move stuff around a lot, and it just really broke my brain trying to figure out how to put it all together and have it unfold in a way that felt really natural. So I needed the color-coded cards, and I had them both digitally in Scrivener and on an actual corkboard, so I could see them and move them around.
Yeah. Did you write everything you wrote all the podcast snippets and then threaded them through, or did you kind of just write them as you were moving through the story?
I wrote them as I was moving through the story, I think, because I needed sort of Lucy's story to inform what was happening with the podcast. And in that first draft, it just kind of all came out. And I ended up writing a ton of stuff in the podcast that I didn't use, like Matt's original. Matt is, if you haven't read the book yet, it's Lucy's ex-husband. His interview was pages and pages long. And I think in the book, it's very brief. I think he talks to Ben for 2 minutes before he gets mad, So I definitely use the podcast as a way to figure things out and then cut it all.
Yeah.
very effective.
Yeah.
Very effective.
And incredible. You have to hold all that in your brain and on color-coded cards, to keep everything straight. It's a lot of moving pieces in this book.
People ask me if I'm going to write another podcast thriller, and I'm like, oh, I don't know. I don't know if I can do it again.
Give yourself some time. Maybe later. Yeah,
maybe later.
Okay, and you just announced that Universal is developing a TV show. That's so exciting. We love Hollywood Sparkle. Can you tell us anything about that, or is it all top secret?
So I don't have any other news besides that they're developing it, and they are very optimistic, and the team seems really great. They really love the book, and they get the tone and the humor and all the important things about it. So I'm very hopeful that it will come together beautifully.
Yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Congrats.
Yeah. All right, you guys, it's that time. Even though we could keep asking you more questions, we have to move on to our killer giveaway. And Amy is giving away 2 copies of Listen for the Lie to lucky US viewers. Doesn't matter where you're watching. We scour the comments everywhere we stream, but please make sure to shout out where you're from. So here's the question of the night. True or false? Listen for the Lie is Amy's first book for adult readers. Easy one.
That is tough.
Were you listening?
Yeah. Well, as you know, the Killers are big fans of independent booksellers, and we want to support the ones our killers love. So Amy has chosen Pages in Manhattan Beach. So tell us, Amy, a little bit about this bookstore and why you love it so much.
So I love Pages, even though it's actually pretty far for me because LA is enormous. So it's kind of a drive for me to get down there, but I love it anyway. It's really close to the beach. It's right next to it. And the booksellers are just really friendly. And I went to an event recently for Count My Lies by Sophie Stava. It was a great event. And that is, I think all authors know, we love a bookstore that can really put on a wonderful author event. So
Mhm.
I definitely recommend hitting them up if you are ever in the LA area.
Great. So we will be dropping the link to pages in the comments so you can order Amy's book from there, along with any others on your wish list.
Yep, just dropped it. So search the comments. Obviously, the killers love to read, and we love it when you share what you're reading in our Facebook group. Post pictures, write reviews, ask for recommendations, and give yours. Tonight, though, we want to know, Amy, what are you currently reading?
I am actually reading Sunrise on the Reaping. So one of the new Hunger Games book.
Yeah, you and everybody else on the planet.
Yeah, so I haven't read a YA book in a while, but when that one came out, I was like, I've got to read it.
It's supposed to be really good. Everybody I've heard talking about it is like
Good and disturbing.
Oh, yay. Yeah, I imagine. Okay, and while we're at it, a couple of fabulous new releases you'll want to grab. We would like to celebrate first If Two Are Dead by Rick Muffina. Driving during a rainstorm, former police officer Luke Conway thinks he's hit something or someone on a lonely stretch of Texas road. When he can't find a body, he panics and decides to secretly investigate it himself rather than report it. Yikes, that's scary. Okay, we also have When She Was Gone by Sarah Foster. 20 years ago, Rose was denied the chance to know her daughter, Louisa, but now Louisa and 2 children have vanished from a remote Australian beach, and Rose, a former policewoman, might be the only one who can save them. Go, Rose. All right, you guys, we have 3 paperback copies of If Two Are Dead and 3 copies of When She Was Gone to give away to U.S. viewers. Please comment if you want in for a chance to win, and tell us your state, and good luck. And don't forget to check out the killer's latest books.
That's right. Look at this gorgeous cover for Kara's upcoming Jill Is Not Happy. I just finished it, y'all. It's great. It's a thriller about an ill-fated road trip that resurrects a married couple's darkest secrets. Out June 10th.
And you know who else isn't happy? The main characters in Heather's upcoming thriller, The Perfect Host. When their over-the-top gender reveal party goes off the rails. Another gorgeous cover.
And another gorgeous cover, speaking of this, Kimberly's The Expat Affair is out June 3rd, about 2 American expats in the deadly world of Amsterdam's diamond industry. Links for all of these are coming up in the comments. Oh, and we have a swag giveaway. So as you know, membership has its privileges. So if you're on Facebook, check out our private members only group called the Killer Author Club, where every episode the killers choose a name from the hat to win a piece of swag, t-shirts, mugs, candles, totes, hats, all of which can be found at killerauthorclub.com. And tonight's winner is, we have Diana Barco Fahrenbrook. So Diana, congratulations. Send the killers a message and we'll get that swag out to you. So if you want to be the next winner, make sure you join the group and you're automatically entered. Link is coming up in the comments. And also big killer thanks to bookreporter.com for sharing the murdery love. Stay up to date on all bookish news and events at bookreporter.com.
So, Amy, we have some excellent news for you.
Okay.
You have survived the Killer Author Club.
Yes. Awesome.
Congrats. It was
Thank you.
close. Tell us where listeners and viewers can find you.
In terms of social media, I am mostly on Instagram these days. So that's a good place to find me. And just Amy Tintera is my name.
Yeah, we like that. Easy to find. All right. So that does it for tonight's episode, you guys. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Join us back here in 2 weeks, May 20th, for the one and only Jamie Hendricks, who will be answering all of our burning questions about their double lives. In the meantime, please find us wasting entirely too much time on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Not really me, but for times, schedule, past episodes, recipes, and merch, surf to killerauthorclub.com. Thank you so much for being part of the club. And thanks again, Amy.
Thanks for having me.
Have
Thanks,
a good night, everyone.
That does it for tonight's show. Thank you for tuning in. If you'd like to catch our next show live, we're every other Tuesday night on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. For times, upcoming schedule, and to catch up on past episodes, visit us at killerauthorclub.com. Happy reading. Now get on out there and kill that TBR.